Hey, good morning, Eastern Oregon, and welcome to this June 5th version of AM Live on EOA, Your Connection Eastern Oregon. We're glad that you are here with us this morning. If you want to find our content, you can go to EOA.network. That takes you to a link tree where you can find the location of our YouTube channel and all of the various places where you can find our stuff. Here in just a little bit, we are going to have Union County Emergency Manager Nick Vora will be with us this morning. Glad you're here.
Yep.
How are you, man?
Good morning. First Friday.
Yeah.
Been busy taking pictures of little kids.
Yeah.
Well, big kids too, but I've been trying to get out and get some little league games. It's been kind of fun. Like, they make the funniest dang faces.
Yeah.
And when they see you there with the camera, they know. Like, the one kid never took his eyes off me. Like, he was even hitting and looking at me like and Rock's son, he was just the whole time. You're like, say hi to Dodzy. And then he never took his eyes off me the entire time. Yeah, it was pretty very funny. Hey, Optimus is doing a fishing derby this weekend. It's free up at Morgan Lake. And the cool thing is it's on free fishing day. So you don't have to have a fishing license. You can take your kids up there. All that they ask is bring your own pole if you have it, because they have a few poles, but not a lot. They're going to provide refreshments. They're going to have a 50-50 raffle. It's a fishing derby, so I'm sure there's going to be some prizes for the fish, the biggest fish or the smallest fish or whatever. That happens from 9 to 3 this Saturday up at Morgan Lake. Last year alone, Optimus donated $24,000 to youth in Union County.
That's awesome.
That's pretty solid, you know what I mean? And that's something that we should all get behind because these kids are super important, and we need to get them engaged in outdoor activities and athletics because the trend is going down with engagement, and we need it to be going up. Also, EOU has their youth football skills camp on the 11th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. They have a lunchtime, but lunch is not provided, so bring a lunch. It's $50, 3rd grade through 8th grade. If you don't have the money, get a hold of Coach Camp or Coach Piper, and you can message me if you need the number. I'll give you the number right now, 541-805-8498. And like I said, if you don't have the $50, they want you at the camp anyways. They want every kid to have the opportunity. So just get a hold of them, and they'll make sure that your kid gets into the football camp because it's important.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah.
So while it's reminding me, so we're going to be, we have some tickets to the Eastern Oregon Livestock Show that we're going to be giving away on our social media, provided by Loveland Safe Ride. And so watch for that on our social media today if you want to be a part of that giveaway. So, hey, you want to do sports?
Let's do it.
All right.
AM Sports Report brought to you by Oxark in LeGrand. Oxark is your Eastern Oregon supplier of industrial gas, hydraulic hoses, welding supplies, safety supplies, and all of your rigging needs. 10001 May Lane in LeGrand, 541-963-2890. Give them a call. LHS softball season came to an end on Tuesday with a 9-4 loss to Astoria in the semifinals. It was sad. It's sad to see seniors that have worked hard all season. This team was pretty, they had to overcome some adversity. They lost one of their seniors early on, and they had a 23-game winning streak early in the season, and they just couldn't get it done against Astoria. And it was one inning, really, to be honest with you. One bad inning, and we take that inning back. We're up 4-1, and things might be a little bit different, but that's the breaks in softball and baseball. You never know. That's why it was so cool that LSU Shreveport, who's an NAIA baseball team, broke the record this year for most wins in a row by a college team any level ever. They went 59-0 and won a national championship. That's unheard of. Okay, so this next little part, we're going to talk about the Mounting Awards, and we're going to go through it kind of quick, but kind of slow too, because I want you to see them all. And I don't have a list. I'm going to go right along with you guys and tell you who they are and what they want. So go ahead and fire it off, Benny. Men's cross country run of the year, Justin Ash. Women's Cross Country of the Year, Runner of the Year, Kalia Hines. Football Player of the Year, Quincy Glasper, the quarterback. Soccer Women's, Karina DeYoung. She's a heck of a defender. Soccer Men's, Daniel Kropp. Another great. Oh, man. We're going to miss her. Haley Aratola, the Women's Volleyball Player of the Year. That's pretty cool. Women's Basketball Player of the Year, Kelsey Siegner, Eastern Oregon girl. A little faster, Benny. Garrett Hawks, Men's Basketball Player of the Year. Women's Wrestler of the Year, Liz Weaver. She was an All-American. Men's Wrestler of the Year, Nico Rodriguez. Another All-American. Performer of the Year, so dance and cheer, that's Kate Jones. Baseball Player of the Year, Trevor Baker. He played pitcher and in the field. Oh, there's the queen, Kylie Parsons, Softball Player of the Year. Lacrosse, Women's Lacrosse Player of the Year, Claire Beaver. Track and field female, Adrienne Washington. So leave it there for just a second and let me explain something about her, Benny. She also played 4 years of volleyball at EOU. She's quite an amazing athlete. She's in the grad program up at EOU, comes back, decides she wants to run track and field, and is an All-American and track and field athlete of the year. Go ahead, Benny. Men's track and field athlete of the year, Justin Krabanoff. He got second in the country in the decathlon. Volleyball Player of the Year, Kiana Mack. The good thing about Kiana is she's one of our middles and she's back next year. Breakout Athlete of the Year, back to Quincy Glasper, the quarterback. He had a heck of a season. He kept EOU in a lot of games. Female Newcomer of the Year, Reagan Clipper. She hit over 400 for the Mountie softball team and was a big part of the reason why the Mounties finished third in the country. Justin Krabanoff is the Male Newcomer of the Year. Like I said, he finished second in the country in the decathlon. He's a track and field athlete. Softball 15-inning game versus Southern is the game or event of the year. That was maybe the game or event of my life, to be honest with you. It was quite amazing. It was, yeah, you just had to have been there. There was a lot of people there, too. It was, yeah. It's one of those ones you never forget about. Oh, the Hope of Dope. Hope's walk-off home run against OLU, the moment of the year for EOU softball. Women's basketball is the female academic team of the year, so that means they have the best cumulative GPA up at the school. And then there's no question men's wrestling, male academic team of the year. They almost had a 4.0 as a team with that many guys.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they're quite amazing. Softball team of the year. Softball raked in the awards, and I could not be happier. It's so awesome. I'm so happy for them. Coaching staff of the year. Softball, Coach Christian and Woody, man, they just do an amazing, Teresa, Bob, they do an amazing job up there, and they just keep getting better. Female Athlete of the Year, right back to Kylie Parsons on the softball team. She was absolutely amazing this year. And then Male Athlete of the Year, Justin Ash of cross country and track and field. He's a distance runner, and he also runs the 3,000 steeplechase. And then finally, it came out last week. Kylie Parsons made second team All-American, and yeah, we're happy about it, but I'm going to tell you, I'm actually kind of upset about it. There was certain people that got first team All-American over her that shouldn't have, that in her league, that she had better stats than across the board. Across the board. And beat head-to-head during the regular season. And I don't understand how that's possible. Like, how could you get All-American first team and give somebody second team that's not as good as you or didn't have as good of a year? But congratulations. Not to take anything away from any of them. They all play a long season, and they're all tough. But Kylie is a first-team All-American in my book. And it's hopefully with this run this year that EOU made, they're going to get some more national attention, and the voters are going to start noticing EOU, because I think that's part of the problem. They don't get noticed real well. You know what I mean? EOU's kind of been an afterthought to people softball wise, and now they're right in the front of people's minds. So, AM Sports Report brought to you by Oxark in LeGrand. Go check them out. Give them a call.
All right. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look outside at the weather. It looks like it's pretty this morning. And let's look at the weather graphic, Benny.
Looks like it's going to be a nice
72,
day.
43. Man, I think that's the one from Tuesday. That's not from today. I was going to say it looked exactly the same, but it's all right. Put that back up. We'll look at the Thursday part of that. So I don't know if this is right or not, but it looks like it's going to be warm today and sunny. So if the forecast was still correct. So, all righty. Well, thank you guys. We will be right back with Union County Emergency Manager Nick Vora.
Eastern Oregon is full of interesting people, with interesting minds and interesting things to say. Here at EO Live, we're committed to connecting you to these intriguing people with EO Talks. We let our special guests share their ideas and life experiences with deep, open, engaging, and inquisitive conversations. You'll also be informed in depth on some of the most recent and relevant events, issues, and more. EO Talks on EO Live, your connection to Eastern Oregon, now on Roku.
All right, we're back. Nick Vora, Union County Emergency Manager. Is that right?
Yep. Good
Close?
morning.
Close, yeah. Good morning. How are you?
Oh, doing well. Staying busy as always. Spring is a busy time of year for us, but I guess there's really not a time of year that isn't busy, just different things. We've been having a lot of fun, doing a lot of training, that type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, fire season is definitely a higher energy system, but other than emergency rescues, does that happen year round?
Yeah, it's just the type of calls changes with the time of year, but I wouldn't say that there's any time of year that's particularly slower or busier than others. I could say like, oh, maybe it's this time, but then if I say that, I would get proven wrong a couple weeks later. So, yeah, there's always something going on, and that keeps the job fun.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier about huckleberry pickers and mushroom pickers. Mm-hmm. We're in the middle of mushroom season now, right?
Yeah, we've. I'm not much of a mushroom aficionado myself, so I know we've been having mushroom pickers getting lost for about the last 3 weeks, so that would sound about right.
So tell me what happens when how do you get that call? How do you know where to go? I mean, we've talked a little bit about this before. You hope that people have notified their friends ahead of time. Yeah, but anyhow, give me a kind of a typical scenario.
So a typical scenario for us is a group of people. Usually it seems like people go mushroom picking in pairs, which is great, better than going by themselves. It definitely makes our life far easier. And one half of that pair ends up getting lost, turned around. Oftentimes people will split up so they're not in visual contact with each other, and then they getting ready to go home and they can't find their partner. Yeah, so that's fairly typical. We'll get a call, and having that other person there who can be our reporting party makes our life drastically easier, because they can tell us exactly where they last saw the person.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if we just come and find a truck on the side of a road, we have no idea, do they go this way or that way, and we have a much bigger problem to solve than I saw them here and they were headed that way type of thing. So then we'll start looking for them. That can include kind of 3 core elements of a search. One is a very thorough search right around the area where they were last seen to try and determine direction of travel, make sure there wasn't like a significant medical event that has them maybe down, unresponsive nearby. Then we also would be searching likely travel paths that they might go to, like if they hit a road and might follow it out, or a ridge line, or a creek bottom, or
Animal
a trail.
trails,
Yeah, all those types of those linear things that people might follow, or some very obvious thing they might be attracted to, like a cabin or something like that. And then would also be trying to establish containment around it. So identify some roads or barriers that we can, for lack of a better term, patrol so that if they did encounter that road, that we would be able to find them before they crossed it and went farther away. Because so that's kind of, in a general sense, the strategy that we would take to find the lost person.
One of the things I do when I go out in the mountains is I always try to remember where my phone works and where it doesn't. You know, or general area. Because there's a lot of spots up on Mount Emily where if you're in a certain area, you find a landmark and your phone will work. You know what I mean? I look for landmarks when it comes to that.
Yeah. And now the cell phone coverage is expanding every year in our area. And usually if someone has a cell phone with them, we are very rarely looking for them as a lost person. Unless there's a couple areas where we don't have good phone service. It's primarily in the greater kind of Greater Catherine Creek Snow Park, in that part of the world. That's the one large area in Union County that's highly accessible, but also has very little to no phone service.
Oh, you're talking about just satellite ping, not actual phone coverage.
That would
right?
be just cell phone, like regular
satellite
cell phone.
Because my cell phone doesn't work. Like, say, go up 600 road, it only works at a couple spots on the 600 road.
So your commercial carrier might not work, but I would
That's what I'm
bet
saying.
that if you were to call 911, that wouldn't be satellite, but you'd be just, your phone carriers are required by law to accept a 911 call regardless of who's making it.
Right.
So even if it shows that you have no service, there's a decent chance in that area you'd still be able to make a 911 call.
That's interesting. I don't think that's commonly known. Yeah. You know, I mean, most people would go, they'd well, I got no service, so they wouldn't even try 911.
I'd try it anyway if I was in enough trouble.
So we often find ourselves looking for people where their phone is on the dashboard of their car or on the seat, and they're like, oh, I don't have service here, I'm not going to take it with me.
Right.
Or people that don't have a phone.
Right.
So the last couple of years, I'd say the average age of people that we've looked for has probably been about 80 years old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
As far as mushroom pickers. And they have been very fit, and some of them have gone quite a long ways and been in very good health and spirits when we found them.
Yeah.
The good thing, these phones nowadays have such good cameras that more people will carry them with them because just for the camera alone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have to carry a camera anymore out in the woods.
Well, and it seems like T-Mobile they've got some kind of an agreement they're rolling out with
Starlink.
Yeah, right.
And I think that we will see that with, I know Verizon is working on one. Verizon and AT&T are going to use the same satellite provider. They're both working on, I'd say probably within the next year, we'll start to see some information coming out from those companies on how that will be rolled out to commercial or just consumers and not just public safety. But it will, and that'll be a game changer, I think, just across the board for locating people.
Yeah. And that's more of it's a text-based service. Is that right? I'm trying to remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
So T-Mobile with Starlink, they plan to have voice calling available. And I think that we'll probably see at some point voice calling with most carriers. But I think from a cost prohibitive aspect, for the average person, unless they're wanting to pay a lot of money for their cell phone plan, will just have texting.
Yeah.
Now the government will be able to keep tabs on you even better.
Yeah, but that will, I mean, eventually that's going to put the satellite phone people out of business. Or
yes.
Does that, right?
And actually, the current companies that are providing satellite phone coverage, some of those companies are who the terrestrial cell phone companies are partnering with to offer the satellite texting.
Yeah.
So I think they're probably, they're just going to end up changing what they do and what they specialize in,
Sure.
and not so.
Yeah.
And the traditional satellite phone with the big fold-up antenna, and it's a big brick about this size, that is already substantially obsolete.
Huh. Isn't that interesting how
Yeah.
quickly just stuff...
It's amazing how fast that technology has changed.
Let's go back to the strategy, because that's kind of interesting. So when you have a lost person, so then do you hope, so then somehow you're looking at a map and you're determining where you think they were going or whatever it might be, and then I guess it's presuming that you have enough volunteers that showed up, right? So that you can go, okay, you go patrol this road, you go, you know,
Yep.
right?
So we usually start at the center and work out,
Yeah.
unless we have some information that leads us to believe that they may have made it a long ways. So it's called, with the search model that I described to you, it's called the bicycle wheel model. You could call it other things, but if you think of that area right around where a person was last known to be, would be the hub of the bicycle wheel. And then all the different linear paths that someone might travel, so the roads, trails, creek bottoms, ridge tops, all those types of things would be the spokes on the bicycle wheel. And then the places where a person might get stuck, maybe if they're driving, a big mud hole or a snowdrift that they might get stuck in, or if they're on foot, maybe a cabin that if they came to, they might stop at. Those would be the reflectors on the bicycle wheel.
Oh,
so
interesting.
things that you're going to pay particular attention to in your searching. And then the rim of the wheel itself would be the containment that we would try to establish to keep our search area, our theoretical search area, from getting larger as time passes. So that's kind of the fundamental model that we use in the initial response. Now, if a person's been missing for 2 weeks or a month, totally different story, totally different approach.
Yeah.
But the initial response, typically we'd follow that model, assuming that a person is going to be alert and responsive.
Right. So if you're looking, if you're concerned that they're not responsive, you know, maybe there's been a medical, so that must be the place where you start, and then kind of what's the next step? It's like,
So then
Yeah.
we would go to area searching, which
Okay.
is the more traditional, a line of people moving through the woods, clearing an area visually, where you can't just call out a person and
Yeah.
listen for them to, or call out a person's name, listen for them to respond.
yeah,
There we determine how far apart we're going to put people by putting a target, say, like we'll crumple up a coat, throw it in some bushes, and then we'll have people go in a circle around that, walk away from it until they can't see it anymore, and then shift their point of view and walk back towards it and stop when they see it. Then we can average all those distances,
Oh, interesting.
and we can get a statistical average on, in that environment, what's the maximum detection distance of the typical searcher to something that we're approximating would be about as detectable as maybe a person who collapsed.
okay.
So then we can use that to space our searchers. And if we have our searchers, say we determine it's 30 feet is the average distance from a searcher to a target. If you put your searchers 60 feet apart, theoretically, and this is all theoretical, you would have complete coverage that they would be able to see halfway over to the other person. And there's been a lot of research over the years. The Coast Guard has done a lot of effort into looking at search theory and the probability of finding what you're looking for. And regardless of the environment, if you have a coverage of 1, so whether you're out in the ocean looking from an airplane or if you're on the ground walking through the woods, if you have basically one person effectively sweeping an area, the probability of them finding what they're looking for is 65%. So a little bit better than half, but still not super high. And in order to get upward around 85%, you have to have a coverage of 2, meaning that those people would need to be 30 feet apart walking so that they have full duplication of effort.
Ah, okay.
So that's what the things that we would take into account for looking for a person. Have to think about, well, what is the amount of area that we have to cover relative to the resources that we have available? and then thinking of likely scenarios. How likely is it that they might be responsive, and we want to move through a large area quickly to try, and or what is the odds that they're unresponsive and it's going to be completely incumbent upon us to see them, in which case we're going to be moving through a smaller area a lot more slowly.
Huh.
So
So in a different scenario, like, let's say that the police are trying to catch a bad guy who is fleeing. Is that a similar, are some of those techniques similar?
yeah, very similar concepts, but also we take the lost person behavior into account in planning a search.
Right.
So we don't use just a purely theoretical model of they've been gone for 4 hours, and if they were walking 2 miles an hour, they could be in this. Your search area would get unrealistically and impossibly large.
Right.
Very fast.
Right.
So we look at behavior and statistics on past searches in similar environments with people doing similar activities. How have they acted? Where have they been found? And there's data that we can reference on that. So a fugitive search would be similar, but you're looking at
Their
someone
behaviors.
who is,
Yeah.
but it's still predictable behavior
Yes,
on
sure.
someone who is actively avoiding you. What might that person do to try and obfuscate signs of them being somewhere? And then you can pay particular attention to that, like a perfectly swept trail with a trail with no footprints on it. Well, that's kind of odd. Like a lot of trails have footprints on them, so that might, so just all kinds of things, or indications that someone is paralleling a trail, not walking on it or crossing it, looking on the shoulder of roads for footprints that went up and across rather than down it, things like that. So you
Interesting.
can still use predictable behavior.
Huh. Wow, there's a lot to that. Do you ever do any tests? Or games, games, you know what I mean? When you're doing training, like they go get lost, and that sounds like a game that I would have played with my teens with a teen
Yeah,
group.
we just spent the entirety of last weekend doing that.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, you have some slides. Let's why don't you tell us about the first event you got
So
going here?
I've got slides of a few things that we've had going on recently. This is in the month of May. We started out with the Oregon State Sheriff's Association has formed an all hazards incident management team. So essentially a group of people that can respond to a local jurisdiction, whether it's a city, a county, tribe, whoever needs us, to help them manage an incident. So we simulated that the city of Springfield, Oregon, by Eugene, had a devastating flood, and we had to evacuate the hospital and some resident care facilities and about 12,000 homes and 30,000 people. And so simulated that response at the State Emergency Coordination Center. So myself and other emergency managers from around the state went there, worked with state employees and state staff, and managed that simulated incident. And we had a lot of fun. Also learned a lot of really good lessons on working with each other on a large and fairly complicated incident.
Yeah.
And then on May 30th, so fairly recently, we worked with Center for Human Development, Oregon Department of Human Services. Our neighboring counties also provided staff, and a variety of other local organizations that provided staff to help us do a full scale, meaning like you're actually not just talking about it, but actually doing it, exercise, evacuating Wildflower Lodge, working with Wildflower Lodge as part of their emergency operations plan, bringing some of their residents to the Union County Senior Center, and who was also a very key partner in this, and feeding them lunch, simulating something happened at the facility. It was no longer a good place for people to be, so we brought them to another place while we awaited transport to our more permanent solution, which was essentially just bringing them back home. And then also the local LDS church was a really key partner in that as well. They provided staff to us to simulate residents of another facility, so that we had two different places that we had to move people from. We were sharing transportation resources, so we're using buses from both Wildflower Lodge as well as Community Connections of Northeast Oregon, and fed everybody lunch. and got people home, and learned also a lot of really good lessons, built a lot of really good connections and partnerships between people in our community, so that if we did have an event, we're not going to be making introductions on the side of the road.
Yeah.
we already now we're just that much closer and more efficient.
Yeah. Now, when you do an event, when you do these events like this, there's a cost to it. You know,
Yes.
right? I mean, certainly with your volunteers, they're volunteering their time, but I mean, talk about that. How do you pay for that?
We are incredibly fortunate here in Union County to have a lot of great partners. So everybody I mentioned is Center for Human Development, Red Cross, Oregon Department of Human Services, and then it's also a group called Medical Teams International, is who financially sponsored this vast majority of this recent exercise that we did. They paid for all the meals for not just the simulated evacuees, but also all the participants. And they purchased those meals from Community Connections, the senior center. So we were able to have that money stay in a local organization that was they're able to benefit from it, and then Medical Teams was able to help us out when their funding they got came from the state of Oregon and Oregon Health Authority on a grant.
Oh, okay.
So we work with a lot of private nonprofits, faith-based organizations, other state agencies. We also have a grant currently from Oregon Department of Human Services that they're providing us funding to offset whatever costs medical teams didn't pay in that drill. So there's no real out-of-pocket costs other than staff time and vehicle fuel that it was incurred by Union County to do that.
So, who do you initiate that? How does that get started? You know,
oftentimes an exercise like that gets started with a conversation. It usually will start with creating a plan and then training people on what that plan is, and then exercising it to validate, is our plan and did a good plan, and did our training tell people what they needed to know.
Yeah.
And we did a previous exercise in February at the Riveria School, where we had some really good takeaways from that on things that we could do better, and also some strong points that we could really make sure we document and do again in the future. So we were able to take those lessons and then apply them to this exercise and make it that much more efficient. We'll take the same lessons from this exercise and just keep refining our plans and building more partnerships.
Do you ever worry like that come game time that people aren't going to be prepared, just because when you simulate something, it's nowhere near the real thing, and you get comfortable when you're simulating, you know what I mean? And then you get in the real thing and you're like in this comfortable rut. Do you ever worry about that? Is there something that...
You know, the biggest risk during a large emergency, I think, would be that the people who are available now during a blue sky day to help with an emergency, that they could be impacted by the emergency itself.
They could be
and not available,
yes.
Or there could be the people needing to be evacuated or need the assistance. And especially in a small community like ours, the odds of at least some portion of our community being impacted, or the responder community, being pretty high. But also the generosity that we have from people in our area of a lot of our public sector, public servant employees put others first, regardless of the impact on them. And also, people tend to, by human nature, default to the level of their training. So the more we do things like this on a blue sky day, where we have a common understanding, a common operating picture on what fundamentally needs to happen, the way it might happen in execution might be a little different during an actual emergency. It might be a little bit more chaotic, but having these plans in place so that people know, like, these are the 5 things that I need to make sure are happening right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell people, like, hey, Brent, I need you to be intake and receiving. You're like, on it. I know what that means to me, and don't have to explain it. So there's definitely far more chaos in a real event, and a lot more possibility for people to slip through the cracks, so to speak. But we do this to try and minimize that to the extent possible.
You can liken it to like sports and practice.
Exactly. It's
You know
no
what I
different.
mean? Because nothing gets you prepared for a game like a game. You can practice all day long.
Yeah.
But nothing prepares you for a game like actually playing in
It's
the game.
that I think is an excellent analogy. We can practice all that, run drills and work on our footwork
Right.
all day, and it's like, well, how is footwork going to help you win a game? But when it all comes together,
Yeah,
if I don't
it's
have
second nature,
if I don't
then-
have to think about the footwork and it
Yep.
just happens, then I can focus on what everybody else is doing.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if you've seen the show The Pit on Apple TV.
Haven't
but
heard of it.
oh, it's fantastic. It's kind of The Pit is an ER in a metropolitan area, and it's a 12-hour shift, and they have 12 episodes, and so each episode is 1 hour of one day. Yeah. Anyhow, well, in the middle of this one day, I mean, the crazy thing about the show is, of course, they throw everything that possibly could happen in that one day, you know. And one of the things they do is they have a mass shooting casualty event, you know, and it was really interesting to see how they prepared for that. I mean, clearly they had. I mean, it's a show, but it gives you this example of, you know, they each knew, okay, this is triage, this is how it's going to be set. I mean, and they had these gigantic carts that they rolled in, and this material was just prepared for this particular type of event. And it reminded me of this kind of stuff, you know,
Yeah,
preparing for
exactly.
that.
Well, they just had a mass stabbing in Salem a couple
really?
days yesterday.
Yeah.
At the Gospel Mission, 12 people.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, wow.
that's mass. That's a lot of people.
100%.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I guess the one question I have is, so do you take models that other people have done of this and you kind of adapt them? I mean, I would imagine you spend a lot of time looking at a plan and figuring it out and tuning it and tweaking it. Is that you?
And substantially, yes, with a lot of help from some really great partners that we have. It's impossible to be a one-person army.
Right.
We're working with all of our partners in the community is what makes that possible. And the process of planning is far more valuable than the plan itself.
Right.
And the conversations that we have, and as we're putting something together on, well, how would we approach this? What would be the best way to do it? Or during an exercise, finding like, okay, the way we did this was a little awkward, maybe the way we had these tables set up. Next time, let's make sure the tables are on this side of the door so that when people come in,
Right.
this flows. So even it could be minor things like that. But now, if we're setting up a shelter, the tables get set up on the correct side of the door. But going back to, that's a really minor thing, but going back to using other plans, there is very good-natured and welcomed plagiarism in emergency management, where we share plans with each other all the time.
should.
And it's very valuable because it leads to consistency.
Right.
And also, if someone puts a lot of time and thought into putting something together in Deschutes County, there's going to be some things that aren't maybe relevant to us or things we need to change to make it applicable to Union County. But often the general concepts that someone's already put a tremendous amount of thought and effort into, very, very relevant for us as well, and we can just take and modify that. So we share plans far more often than we don't.
Yeah.
I would imagine that, like, the National Guard's probably a great resource for you, too.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because they do a lot. They're kind of, they do that stuff.
Particularly just with logistics and surge
Right.
staff, we're generally a group of individuals that is highly trained, eager to serve, and can fit into anything from manning a roadblock to doing janitorial stuff to whatever it
Right.
might be. Activating them and actually getting them can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge because they're technically a state resource, and depending on the emergency, I couldn't just ask for the National Guard.
No, I
for
was
something
talking
basic,
more about
but-
ideas.
Yeah,
Like,
for
not
ideas.
necessarily having them.
And that's something the National Guard typically isn't involved in local level plans, but they're usually very involved in the development of state level plans. The state considers them a state resource and not a local resource.
But do a lot of like National Guardsmen or people that are volunteer?
Yes.
So you
and
have that?
Yeah, we see, and we really benefit from that a lot. A lot of people with prior careers in military find their way to emergency service volunteering, or just a second career in something related to emergency services, and that just the organization and the dedication and all the different attributes that makes a good member of our armed forces makes an excellent contributor to our community.
Well, yeah, a search and rescue
really
in my eyes should almost be militant. You know what I mean? Like a way of thinking. It has
that's
to
the
be...
way we organize. We use the same incident command structure in SAR that we use in fire and law enforcement and across the board, so that we can be as interoperable as possible.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's amazing. I had a question and it escaped me. I guess let's go back for just a minute and tell me, so if somebody does get lost, we're going way back. Give us some advice on what they should do or shouldn't do. I mean, so they're out mushroom hunting, it's getting dark, what is your advice for them? And it's weather like this. They know they're not going to freeze to death. They're going to get, but yeah.
So generally, the more a person moves, the harder it is to find them. Because if someone gets lost, usually it's because they don't know where they are. They're turned around. So if they keep moving, trying to orient themselves, it's often the case that they just get further disoriented. Whereas if you knew where you were, but now you're turned around, you're like, I know I'm within a quarter mile of my truck. I just don't know which direction my truck is from me right now, if it's this way or that way. If you stay put, the odds of us finding you within a quarter mile of your truck, very high. If you keep walking and now you're 3 miles from your truck and you're still not sure what direction it is, the odds of us finding you in that same amount of time are much farther because you're that much farther away from where we're going to start looking. So the number one thing would be to stop. And then the number two thing, I would say, if you have a phone, call 911. Before you call friends, family, 911 being your first call, for the reason we discussed earlier, you may not have service with your normal provider, or you're at 5% battery or something like that. If someone calls 911, that is the best way for us to get their location. Because unless they've deliberately disabled it in settings, a phone is set up to transmit its GPS location when you call 911. We can't get that GPS location from historical data. So if you're making other phone calls to other people and then your phone dies, we have to do a much more difficult, time-intensive process with essentially analyzing the signal patterns of your transmissions, what tower you were talking to, and the signal strength to approximate distance and range and direction. And it's much more of a math problem than it is, here's the coordinates, this is where the person is. Right. So a 911 call, definitely, that makes it a rescue and not a search, because then we know where to go get you.
Yeah.
Just stay put, we'll be there in however long it takes us, and we'll get you to your truck or your car. And then also, I would say is a caveat to not moving, if you can see a very an obvious road that's right below you, just go and stay put on that road. Because I talked about the linear features, things that if someone else might encounter you and maybe you don't have a phone, say, hey, could I have your phone? I need to call, and let them know where I am. I hope there might be people looking for me, and letting us know that, kind of where you are, that type of thing. So that is fundamentally, that would be it. But then also just going prepared, having some way, like a little battery stick so that you could recharge your phone if the battery gets low. packing extra water. Or food, while you're not going to need food to stay alive in most cases, for at least for the first few days, food can provide a lot of psychological comfort. Because if you're really hungry and you're cold and you're lost, that puts you in a little bit of a different headspace than if you're not hungry and less cold, but still lost.
Okay. So, and if it's night, what should you do? Yeah.
Would all the same rules would apply. Find a way to keep yourself warm if it's cold outside, and also plan to bring layers with you. If it's a warm day and you're headed in the mountains, you should have a long sleeve in a backpack or something, because if you get out overnight, as I'm sure you've both experienced in the mountains, you can have a 30 to 40 degree temperature swing.
Oh, even more.
And what was a day when you were just sweating and exhausted could turn into freezing.
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of people, I mean, there are sometimes when people wander in the dark, they'll walk off a cliff. They'll injure themselves, right?
Yeah. Definitely travel at night, I'd say would be ill-advised under just about all circumstances, unless there's something that, and also distances can be deceiving at night. You see that light in the distance, what you thought was maybe a campfire could be a ranch house light that's actually 10 miles away. You were seeing through the trees, and what you thought was like a couple 100 yards away is miles away.
Yeah.
So just staying put at night is just staying put in general would be advice across the board.
Interesting. All right. Well, hey, you had some more pictures.
Yeah, so speaking of search and rescue, in May we've been busy having a lot of fun, but also practicing some pretty valuable skills. Mira is a great training ground for SAR. This is some photos from some recent rope rescue training that we did at Mira. Working on some different technical skills. Also worked with our water rescue team, so that's the Sheriff's Office, Marine Patrol, Search and Rescue, and City of LeGrand Fire Department staff combined.
Where is that?
That's at Riverside Park.
I was going to say that's Riverside.
So what we were doing here in this drill was practicing positioning the boat via ropes tethered on the shore with the rocks and different obstructions in the river. If someone, say, had fallen out of a boat and was trapped on a rock in the middle of the river, the water level's pretty low right now, but it provided just a good training opportunity for practicing maneuvering a boat. And we had to shoot the ropes across the river since the bridge is handy, but if the bridge wasn't there, how would we get a rope across?
Yeah, and I think you brought that contraption. Yeah.
So that, and then also our Swiftwater team had a very generous invitation from the Wallowa County Search and Rescue Swiftwater team, where they flew in to the Minam Lodge, Red's Horse Ranch area, and then floated out the Minam River to Highway 82. And the reason they did that was to familiarize themselves with the Minam in the wilderness, because there's now for-profit companies that have trips where they will drop people off there with their boats and gear, and they'll float out. So the probability of there being a potential incident we needed to respond into with Wallowa County there is reasonably high. So they wanted to make sure that we were familiar with all the different areas, potential landing zones for helicopters, things like that. So really appreciate Wallowa County's invitation, and they provided the aircraft. Then also, while members of our Swiftwater team were doing that, I was with the balance of our team who was available to train in John Day. We had a regional Eastern Oregon search and rescue training for 3 days, Friday through Sunday, where we had classes, some really fascinating classes on bone identification, death investigations, working with canines, landing zones, patient packaging, that type of stuff is a classroom component. And then we also ran scenarios that involved multiple missing people, also injured, some of them all simulated injuries, obviously, when we found them, so that we had to deal with the missing person problem and then also deal with the injured person problem, so to speak. So Grant County was an awesome host, and I believe it was their commissioners who are the stewards of their transient room tax program. They provided grant funding to substantially cover the cost of that training event, which was really awesome and helped out our volunteer organizations there. And we had about at least 8 counties and Civil Air Patrol represented their training. So several aircraft from Civil Air Patrol assisting with communications as well as aerial search.
Wow, cool. Is there something that you wish you had more knowledge of yourself? I mean, there's so much variety in what you do, and I know that you like that.
Really, just everything pretty much, because by nature I'm a jack of all trades and by no means a master of anything. So being able to have much more in-depth knowledge on any one of these things would really be great. But on the technical rescue side of things, those skills are so perishable. If there was some way that I could try to retain some of that knowledge or learn some of the different technical specialties.
So why is it perishable? Help me understand that.
Because it's highly detailed and there's generally a lot of numbers, math, things you need to take into consideration for something like rope rescue. There's the concepts of what you're trying to accomplish, but then also it's, well, how do you use this arrangement of ropes and pulleys and anchors and webbing to accomplish this specific type of mechanical advantage system in this specific type of context, and things like that can be pretty complicated. And one of the capacity or capabilities that we really don't have in Eastern Oregon that I guess from a knowledge as well as a resource standpoint that I would really like to be able to add back is a structure collapse and confined space rescue aspect. We have some very limited capabilities, and I'm speaking like east of Highway 97, across fire departments and sheriff's offices combined, but there's not a lot of real resources that we have with the technical training specific to, like, if a semi-truck missed an exit ramp, crashed into a brick building and caused an occupied building to collapse, to be able to effectively and comprehensively respond to that and mitigate all the potential hazards to first responders with secondary collapses and things like that. So as far as things that keep me up at night, I would say those along those lines. And we also, not in Union County, but in some of our neighbors have had confined space with air quality that was not breathable, but so there's a technical rescue, rope rescue component along with an air quality component, but the space is too small, you can't wear an air pack in there, so you would have to have a supplied air system. So it takes a huge amount of training, incredibly expensive to maintain a team that does that, which is why Eastern Oregon substantially doesn't have a lot of that capacity, so it would probably be to the tune of probably 6 figures a year to maintain a team. So that's something that if I had an unlimited budget and unlimited volunteers and staff, that would be the next capacity I would add.
Huh, interesting. So, yeah, I mean, and I never thought about how every one of those is a different incident, and training for it, somebody is trapped in a car because of a car accident, that might be one thing, and a rope, I mean, all of these things are super interesting, and you train, in my understanding, then those have a label, they have a specific training with them, they have a specific equipment, and we had talked before how that since the counties in Eastern Oregon collaborate together, you guys, there are some of you that are good at some stuff, yes, and some that are good at others, and that you collaborate in that manner.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So like Union County, for example, our swiftwater rescue team, we don't have a lot of or train a lot with motorized watercraft. We use kayaks and paddle rafts and catarafts, and Sheriff's Office Marine Patrol does have a jet boat. But we focus our efforts on the river-based rescue side of things. We don't have dive rescue or side scan sonar or things like that, but Baker County does have dive rescue. So they're a resource that we can call if we need a dive resource. And then Wallowa County has more on the motorized side of swiftwater rescue resources. So while we all try and have those resources for the initial response, so that you can get someone on scene, start fixing the problem right away, for some of the more really expensive, more specialized stuff, that's where we try and not have too much duplication if duplication doesn't need to exist. In some cases it does. Like, you're not just going to have one county have a fire truck and say, well, we'll share it.
Right.
You might need that, and you need that to show up right away.
Right.
But for some of the more specialized stuff, so like currently in Oregon, from a structure collapse or a confined space, that's where we call through the state, or hazmat is another great example. We call through the state system, and then teams that are elsewhere in the state would get mobilized to respond.
Now, how is that paid for? In that, like, those other teams get in the vehicle, they come, I mean, how?
It gets into some fine administrative details on who the team is, who asked for them, how they were asked for, and the type of incident they were asked for. So there are some state teams like hazmat that the state pays for. Then there's other teams that maybe the state doesn't pay for that likely would respond on the goodness of their heart and not request reimbursement.
Okay.
So that is the case in most instances. There could be some instances where, particularly if equipment gets broken on a search, where that agency might ask for financial help with covering it. But typically with emergent incident, or the emerging incident mutual aid response, when we go to help each other, we don't ask for reimbursement. It's implied that if you're responding, you're also covering your costs.
Which makes
As
sense.
it should be.
Yeah, which makes sense. But there is a real live cost to it.
Yes, and particularly with extended events,
Right.
where if it's going on days, and we're currently working with Oregon Emergency Management and the state, so to provide some funding to assist local agencies helping other local agencies.
Yeah.
And it looks like this year we've got some really exciting developments where it looks like the state might be able to help local agencies and counties pay for lodging when they go to help each other, and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. So I remember what I was going to ask you before, because we were talking about the event, responding to an event organization and that kind of stuff. And we do some bigger events ourselves, nothing like this. But one of the errors that I often make is I'll spend months planning it and figuring out who's going to do what, but I will keep that information to myself. And so then the day of, it's like, man, I should have shared this with more people. I mean, have you found yourself are those some lessons that you kind of learn from time to time?
Oh, yes. And communications is a consistent opportunity for improvement, we could say, just across the board, regardless of what's going on.
Yeah.
It's just human nature. It's something that everyone generally has to work on. And so that's written communication, verbal, radio, all that stuff is something that we're always have a really key emphasis on continually improving before an incident in the planning process, as well as during and afterwards.
Well, and more than one person has to have the information. I mean,
Yes.
so there's a lot of if there's questions on how to do something or who should be where or whatever, it can't all be coming to one person. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you, Nick. Always.
pleasure.
Is there anything that you need to make us aware of coming up? Fire season's coming up. Anything?
Yeah, I would say in regards to fire season, just general, it's this time of year. It's really tricky with fire conditions from a regulatory standpoint. We could have hot, dry weather today, and we could be in knee-deep mud next week.
Yeah.
Really variable. So people, particularly in the spring, need to be using common sense, looking at the conditions that particular day. And just because burning regulations allow doesn't mean that an individual should. So just general sense that we try to not excessively regulate people, allow for the use of common sense and discretion as much as possible, and appreciate the public when they help us out with that.
Yeah, good. Thank you, man. Yeah,
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Yep.
All right. Want to get us out
Do
of
it. On this day, June 5th, 1661, Isaac Newton is admitted as a student to Trinity College in Cambridge. 1851 on this day, the anti-slavery novel Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe is first published in serial form in the National Era. 1944 on this day, after receiving favorable weather reports, General Eisenhower decides to proceed with the D-Day invasion on the following day, June 6th. 1968 on this day, Palestinian Sirhan Sirhan assassinates Robert F. Kennedy, shooting him 3 times and wounding 5 others at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, California. Kennedy would go on to die the next day. 2024 on this day, Boeing releases their Starliner's crew flight test mission. They were on an Atlas V rocket from Cape, I always have a problem with this word, Cape Canaveral. Yeah, there you go. There. Cape Canaveral with NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. The quote of the day comes from Cheryl Strayed, and it's, I put those backwards. Man, I'm losing it today. #1 movie in America on this day. Go back to that one, Benny. There you go. Return of the Pink Panther, 1975. For some reason on my list, they're backwards. And then the quote of the day comes from Cheryl Strayed. Bravery is acknowledging your fear and doing it anyways. One more time. Bravery is acknowledging your fear and doing it anyway.
All right. Hey, thank you, man.
Thank you.
Thanks,
yeah,
Nick.
appreciate it. Thank you, guys. We'll
Fishing derby this weekend.
Yep. See you soon.